Alright, first video by Brett Cooper. Why is everyone pissed off over the Odyssey casting? Because it's terribly wrong. Do you actually, Elliot Page, dang it. Ellen Page has been thrown out there as playing the ghost of Achilles, which is completely, it's completely a thing that, in theory could happen. No, but I've been thinking about this. It does feel like how much of what we want to do with regards to pronouns, like instinctively in the way we speak, how much of it has to do with the type of name we're using? Because I find myself, when I'm thinking Elliot Page, I'll say he. But I think that's literally just because you just said Elliot Page. Elliot, which is a boy's name, innately, kind of. So you say, oh yeah, Elliot Page, he, blah, 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 blah. But if you said Ellen Page, you would naturally say she did, blah, 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 blah. So we think of it as some sort of like, I don't know, I feel like someone who was trans could think of it as some sort of Freudian slip. Oh yeah, well, you just said, like, I don't know if that's the case. I think sometimes it's just the way we think about it in our heads. We associate the pronouns with the type of name it is, with the gendered version of whatever name it is. Anyways, let's get into this.
Alright, so since the prolific filmmaker Christopher Nolan decided to take on The Odyssey with his new adaptation, I have been following all of the drama surrounding this film. I mean, people have had criticisms and thoughts and...
Never actually listened or read The Odyssey. I should sometime. Like, so is the Iliad the prequel, or is it... Because I think you a lot of times would hear them in consort, the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Opinions about the casting and the costumes, literally everything. And for the most part, the majority of the...
Sorry, prequel might be the wrong term. It predates, like in sequence. The Odyssey is, sequential to the Iliad. I have to look this up. Two foundational epic poems attributed to the ancient Greek poet Homer, often published together as a single volume. The Iliad focuses on the final year of the Trojan War, centered on the rage of the hero Achilles, while the Odyssey chronicles the hero Odysseus's long and perilous... So it would happen in sequence, I think. Because Odysseus would have fought in the Trojan War, and then, interesting.
Outrage, up until recently, has been coming from the left. But now, in the last 48 hours or so, conservatives have started to get outraged. They're pointing out their own issues with the film, and so our friends over at Variety published
missing something?
Literally everything. And for the most part, the majority of the outrage, up until recently, has been coming from the left. But now, in the last 48 hours or so, conservatives have started to get outraged. They're pointing out their own issues.
To be clear, I didn't know that the lefties didn't like this. I thought they would have loved it.
With the film, and so our friends over at Variety published an article about that.
I think Athena is also being cast as Zendaya was cast as Athena, which is, she's one of those people they're like technically black, but they look very, Mediterranean-esque. There was one of the ladies on The View, Sunny Houston, who I believe got up on and was saying that, oh no, blah, 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 like, historians are very cut about, the influence of Egypt and what, or something like that on Greek mythology or stuff like that. And this part of me was like, okay, but Egypt has more in common with everything in the Middle East. I would say Egypt and North Africa have more in common with Europe and the Middle East than they have anything to do with, like, sub-Saharan Africa. Like, they're on the same landmass. They are not the same at all. The whole culture is entirely kind of separate. In the same way that Europeans are on the same landmass as, Far East Asia. Like, yeah, technically they're on the continent. I would not put them in the same, like they are... I guess now we're saying that everyone that's on the African continent is, in fact, African. I don't know. Just seems a little bit weird. On a completely related note, is the word street Arab racist? Give me all your hot takes. No. I think I came across it in Innocents Abroad, which is actually where I learned the word bakshish as well. It's probably racist. It's probably insensitive or something. Because you're kind of, yeah. I might use it one of these times anyways, just to piss people off.
Which made me literally LOL, specifically because this article opens with this. Just listen, guys. You're gonna laugh. The author writes, "From the team that brought you Why is Snow White Latina? Why are there black people in the Rings of Power? And Star Wars has gone woke comes the latest online onslaught against an anticipated Hollywood project that has committed the unfathomable sin of having..."
Yeah, okay, so just to clarify, if this were any other culture, if this were any non-white culture, this same person, Marlo Stern, would be getting their torch and pitchfork. They would be the first one getting their torch and pitchfork. Like, it feels like there is a very much a double standard where the only culture that is allowed to be desecrated in the most indecent sorts of ways, in the most obscene sorts of ways, seems to be white culture. Everyone can be white. No one can be any other. Like, white people cannot be any other race. That's how these castings go. It never, like, I would say it almost never goes the other way, which is actually interesting. Like, I haven't actually watched The Boys, but I'm pretty sure, like, I tend to read a lot of, like, lore about shows, even though I don't watch them. Actually, I've read a lot about the Game of Thrones, which is a really intriguing world. You know, some worlds, it's weird. Some worlds, I don't know why, but like something like the Elden Ring, I just find the world itself incredibly depressing. But bring it back in. In The Boys, I think A-Train was actually supposed to be Hispanic, and they race swapped him to black, which is, you know, it's interesting to see it go that way, at least. I'm pretty sure in the comics he would have been Hispanic, and he did not get any sort of redemption arc. I think also Queen Maeve was much less altruistic. Technically, I think she had, yeah, it's a bit interesting the way they fiddled with that one.
A diverse cast. Well, I have a lot to say about this article and about the controversy, but first...
It's a nice way of framing it, though, too. For the sin of having a diverse cast. I think the sticking point for most people was the casting of Lupita Nyong'o, who some people say is ugly. I do not think she's ugly. I think she's just miscast. Like, she like, again, would you ever do this with regards to any other culture's icons? Like, I don't think so. Somehow I don't think so.
First of all, we have to ask, how did all that turn out for all of...
What? And again, I think I've stated this before, I'm less pissed at her than I am at the people who... I guess she took the job, technically. I don't know if she was pressured into it or whatever. But I'm more pissed at the people who kind of put her in the position where she either could or had to accept this. Who actually said, oh no, we need a black person as Helen of Troy. Because they're the ones putting black people in the hot seat, proverbially. Like, that's kind of a sicko move on their part.
The projects that you just listed, huh? Are they doing well? Is Disney succeeding? Just asking questions. Now, of course, I have thoughts, I have answers, but before we dive into that, I want to remind you guys that on May 19th, next week, I will be at Zany's here in Nashville, so if you want to catch a live show, hear some stories, learn what's going on in my life, we'll talk about my favorite things that are just going crazy on the internet, come to the show May 19th if you're in the greater Nashville, Middle Tennessee area, and of course, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you always stay up to date on everything we are doing on The Brett Cooper Show. All right, let's dive in. I'm so excited about this. I kind of made myself laugh when I was like, I have answers and I have thoughts, of course. And something that I think about all the time is the fact that, I mean, I'm just so lucky. I feel so grateful to be doing the show. I love the show, and it's especially great because, like, as a kid, I was such a know-it-all. I mean, I'm still kind of a know-it-all. Like, my mom's major issue...
You sound like a know-it-all.
with me when
Who can talk really fast, too.
I was a kid was she would like
No, sorry.
try to give me direction for something like, Brett, I'm going to explain how to do something to you and be like, I don't want to hear it. I know how to do it. Like, I know how to do everything.
That's technically something I can I could probably commiserate with a little bit, because it's one of those things where, like, if I can't figure it out myself, I don't want to know. Like, don't tell me. I think most of us could probably, to some extent, like, they could sympathize with that perspective.
Extremely overconfident, which honestly I get from my mother. I had opinions on everything and I wanted to tell everybody about it, and I could...
Opinions? I've never had an opinion about anything. I'm just the soul of reserved stoicism.
Literally just like talk to a tree. You did not have to respond to me. I would literally just talk all day long. One of my favorite phrases
Case in point.
as a kid was like, I could have done that better. Like, if that were me, I would have done this.
I guess it's a video, so she's supposed to talk, but it does come off, like, I'm saying, like, the characterization of how she's speaking right now seems to indicate that.
Differently. So yeah, I am asking questions about things that are going on online, but obviously I have opinions, and I get to sit in an empty room with a camera and talk to you guys about them, which is just so cool. Anyway, that was just a little aside. I'm so happy that you guys are here listening to me rant about things. Anyway, so let's dive into this. So just from a bird's eye view about The Odyssey, I just want you to take a look at this cast. The film is coming out this summer. It's been very anticipated, and it is stacked. I mean, Matt Damon is in it too.
Okay. How much you want to bet there's a reason these two were cast in the same movie? Just pointing that out. I think they're feels like to some extent they might be attached to the... Well, I guess I don't know. How many things have they been cast in? There's definitely Spider-Man that they're both in, right? They are married now, right? Like Zendaya and Tom Holland, I think, are married. Holy crap, this is diverse as all get out. He must feel so... gosh darn inclusive. I don't know.
Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and
Odysseus. Telemachus, just for the record, for anyone who doesn't know how to pronounce this, it's Telemachus. Agamemnon. Melantho. Okay, this one I actually don't know. Eumaeus? Eurylochus? I don't know about that one either.
Thea, Charlize Theron.
Telemachus, I remember because I think it was on Homer Price. There's a guy called Telemachus.
It is like the Avengers of A-listers. And I mean, I look at that, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm sure we're gonna get amazing performances out of this project. No, wrong, my friends. Not cool, not great, not acceptable, because controversy after
I would even say, like, I think you could have done this 10 years ago and gotten away with it a little bit. But it feels like these days, it's never enough that they cast someone, that they actually race swap the person. There's something to be said for not addressing the elephant in the room, and they have to rigorously address the elephant in the room every single time. Hey, did you see we cast so-and-so as such and such? Hey, how do you feel about the fact that we cast so-and-so and such and such? How do you feel being the first blank, 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 blank to play this role? Blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, I feel like the people who make the movies, like the directors, the casting agents, whatever the heck, they're the ones that are beating the horse dead and then burying the horse and then digging the horse back up and then beating it again with regards to stuff like this. Where it feels like if you just didn't talk about it nearly as much, you would get far less blowback from it. Like, I didn't remember there being a lot of blowback when Nick Fury was cast as... No, when Samuel Jackson was cast as Nick Fury. And I guess maybe there's probably some, because Nick Fury is white in the comics. But Samuel Jackson did a great job at it. I think for most people who aren't into the comics, Nick Fury is black. He was literally... Like, he's kind of in the same way that Robert Downey Jr. defined the character Iron Man. It would be really hard for someone else to play that, I guess. No, maybe it's doable, but it feels like for a lot of people, they're kind of iconic in those roles. That's my hot take.
Controversy has now followed this casting every step of the way. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is arguing about it from their own political point of view, obviously trying to win the culture war per usual, which I feel like just in general, most people in the real world are exhausted by. I personally find myself exhausted by it. But again, bird's eye view, like the left wants representation. They want to see everybody represented. They want fewer roles for these big, rich, established actors. They want Christopher Nolan to be helping out the little guy. The right is calling out Christopher Nolan for race swap.
Okay. What are we talking about? Oh, is it because all the big name castings?
I personally find myself exhausted by it. But again, bird's eye view, like the left wants representation. They want to see everybody represented. They want fewer roles for these big, rich, established actors.
Okay, that's why, because it is like a commie thing or something like that. And they're doing a more nepotism, established actor type thing. Okay.
They want Christopher Nolan to be helping
I guess that makes sense.
out the little guy. The right is calling out Christopher Nolan for race swapping in the very odd, interesting choice to cast Elliot Page. Elliot Page, allegedly, as the great
Ellen Page.
warrior Achilles. And we're going to get into that. But first, we need to talk about the hypocritical selective outrage, which this time is coming from the left. Because when this cast was first announced, I think it was, more than a year ago, a lot of people were upset, specifically the film snobs, the woke Hollywood types, and they were upset because, number one, like you just heard, because he chose these A-list actors instead of finding young, up-and-coming people, getting a gritty cast together.
I guess Tom Holland and Zendaya are no longer young and up-and-coming. Tom Holland he still looks freakishly young.
Together. And then number two, they were upset because none of these actors are
I wonder if he can actually grow a beard or anything like that. You might want to try it sometime. If he ever wants to be seen as like not the Justin Bieber weird Adonis archetype or whatever. If he wants to ever grow out of that, you might want to try growing some facial hair. I guess I don't know. Maybe he can't. Some people just they always have. Mine is still kind of patchy in the sides there, but I try to actually do kind of a fade in, which maybe mitigates some of that. But
actually Greek. And of course, Homer's The Odyssey is an epic poem. It is a Greek epic poem, probably the most well-known, famous, foundational piece of Greek art in the entire world. But here's the thing. This is the way that I view it. Christopher Nolan, because of his standing in Hollywood.
I'm just thinking, like, again, hate to belabor this point, but if someone were to make a movie about Nate King Cole or something, he's like an iconic black person, right? If we were to make a movie about Nate King Cole and cast him as a white dude, be like, oh, why are you suppressed about it? I mean, what does it matter? We just wanted some like, no, they would rightly be extremely pissed about that, I imagine.
He can cast whoever he wants. I mean, he is the most sought-after director in Hollywood, literally. Like, everyone in Hollywood literally fights to get cast in his movies. Robert Pattinson, who is in this upcoming Odyssey film.
Actually, I don't know if they like Nate King. Well, I feel like Nate King Cole is more for an older generation. I still like him, but that's primarily because I like old music a lot. I don't know, who would be the iconic black musician these days? 50 Cent? Who's the dude who's always going after Kendrick Lamar? He's making jokes about Drake or whatever.
He even talked about how he begged Zendaya, who he was just in another film with, to put in a good word for him, and that's actually how he got his role in the film. Anytime movies, Robert Pattinson, who is in this upcoming Odyssey film, he even talked about
okay, so that's what's
how he begged Zendaya, who he was just in another film with, to put in a good word for him, and that's actually how he got his role in the film. Anytime you watch those.
A lot of people are kind of going spare over the whole idea of, I believe Tom Holland uses the word dad or daddy. Like, not in a weird way, but literally they just use that lingo to, denote his father. And the question as to whether in real life a person would use some sort of informal address is, I think, kind of moot. It's a movie. I think especially in like Greek epics or Shakespearean tragedies or stuff like that, we expect a degree of formality from the characters involved. So I don't think that the question of how would they have done it in real life, like, no, it's a play, or basically it's supposed to be formal. He would say father in this play. That feels more appropriate in any case.
Those actors on actors roundtable interviews, I think maybe Hollywood Reporter or Variety does those. They're always talking about how, their bucket list item, their dream in their career in industry is to work with Christopher Nolan. So he has his pick of everyone. If he wanted to do all Greek, he could. If he wants to make a crazy diverse cast, he can make that happen. And everyone in the industry is kind of like, we just let Christopher Nolan be Christopher Nolan. And listen, I am not here getting my panties in a bunch about stuff, but I agree, in all...
Okay, here's a question. Are Greeks kind of in the same category as, Italians, where they're considered, almost not white or something like that? It feels like a lot of, the Mediterranean-esque. I would almost put all of those countries kind of in the same grouping. You'd maybe have your Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Well, Pakistan's actually even further east, right? It's, up and to the right, to the east. Well, there's kind of the Middle Eastern type of sect of nations, and there's North Africa and Southern Europe. And I imagine just because they're in proximity to the Mediterranean, there would have been a lot of intertrade or stuff like that. So I kind of see them as almost their own subculture, if that makes sense. Their own primary, their own area. Their own biome? That's not it. You get what I'm saying.
All Greek cast would have been incredibly cool, especially because if there is anybody in Hollywood who has the sway to pull that off, who could, put together a cast of essentially nobodies, up-and-coming Greek actors that he has discovered. If anybody could put that together and still get butts into theaters, still get them to come out to support an amazing film, it would be him, just because of the pull that he has in Hollywood and with audiences. So, was going with all of these A-listers the lazy or easier route? Sure, I would argue it was a lot more expensive, so I don't know if it was the better route, but you could say that, but I don't...
I've heard also that, I guess I don't even know if I've really watched a lot of Nolan's stuff, but, I think I watched some of the Dark Knight Rises or something like that, maybe, but I've heard that he kind of got popular, and as inevitably happens, when people get popular in Hollywood, they start getting the types of friends who want them to be more mainstream, I guess. They start wanting to appeal to the mainstream, perhaps. And I've heard that he kind of sold out a little bit with regards to this thing.
Again, I don't really care. It's Christopher Nolan. He's going to do what Christopher Nolan wants to do, but a lot of people really did care. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. Somebody said, I decided to check up the IMDb page for Nolan's Odyssey.
Oh, and I've heard also the notion that this will probably do good just because Nolan has a lot of fans. They diehard types of fans and whatnot. And it probably will. I mean, there's a lot of hype, I guess, around it. A lot of people just, even if they think it'll do crap, even if they think it's a terrible iteration, they'll go to see the crash. But I feel like it might not have the mass appeal that it would have had if he had just played it straight. If he just done kind of an unremarkable, appropriate cast, an unremarkable, appropriate, era-appropriate story, as authentic as possible, and as good as you can get it with regards to that. I would say, yeah, I don't know.
And it really managed to assemble a diverse cast from all over the world without including a single Greek. Generational casting work for a movie based on one of the most well-known pieces of Greek literature. The best they could do was giving a supporting role to part Greek Michael Valamis. Valamis? Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. So that's just an example of one of these critiques. Now, on top of this very dire situation, the lack of traditional Greek representation, as the trailers started coming out and the little teasers for the Odyssey, people also started nitpicking Christopher Nolan's costume design. So, for example, in this image and clip, you see Agamemnon, who was wearing black.
I've heard that the armor is incredibly inaccurate, which I wouldn't notice myself, but it's got the history bros all up in a tizzy.
Armor. And I saw that, I was like, okay, that looks cool. I didn't really think anything of it, but some people were not happy about this. One person tweeted, you have two kinds of people upset about the historical accuracy of the new Odyssey movie. There's the ones who are very upset about black people being in it, but not so much the white people. And then you have the people upset that they didn't go with the tin can armor that they had back then. who is me, is what this girl is saying. So a lot of people apparently were expecting the traditional bright bronze,
something to piss off everyone.
aka
That's real inclusion.
what would have been more historically accurate, or I guess what we perceive as being historically accurate for the Trojan War Greek era. But Nolan obviously went with this really dark, heavy style. It kind of looks medieval to me. People online were saying that it looked more like Batman armor instead of Greek.
I believe people have used this, that Nolan's... They've talked about the notion that Nolan's films are always, like, grounded and gritty, which is maybe to a fault.
Armor, which honestly, I see it in some of these clips, it makes sense. But to his credit, Nolan was apparently looking for other historical accuracy. Like, he said that the black armor was very intentional. It was inspired by theories about darkened bronze weapons at the time. Like, there was a style, they would use sulfur, they would darken the armor, I don't know.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
He also took some liberties while simultaneously trying to pursue historical accuracy with things like telling his composer not to use an orchestra for the score.
It's weird.
Or because they didn't have an orchestra back then. So that was something he was being really particular about.
Persnickety.
So the point that I am trying to make is that way before the last 48 hours, the last 4 days, whatever it's been, way before the right-wing internet got involved in this whole controversy, people were already nitpicking Christopher Nolan's choices. They were nitpicking the historical accuracy, the cast, everything. And so this week, when it came out that Nolan had cast actress Lupita Nyong'o to play Helen of Troy, the most...
That's the clincher for a lot of people. Like, not an ugly woman. I think if people don't like her, there's certainly personal taste involved. Some people aren't really attracted to black women. I can, or sometimes am not. Doesn't happen that often, but it can happen. She's not ugly. She's not ugly at all. She's quite pretty in my mind. Still doesn't... It's not a good casting.
Beautiful woman in the world, so beautiful that...
I was going to say doesn't belong there, but that was not kind of weird. But no, literally, she does not belong in that role.
The story of her abduction literally...
Sorry if that makes me racist.
Started the Trojan War, long been described and perceived and portrayed as this, like, blonde, fair-skinned beauty, Helen of Troy. You would think that the same people who were nitpicking the historical accuracy, colors of things, the beauty, all of that, that they would take issue with that casting as well, right? Like, you would think that they would keep the same energy. Wrong! Obviously not. They just decided to call out everybody on the right as being racist. And so suddenly now, the Odyssey has become the latest culture war fodder. So obviously Lupita's role being announced sparked a frenzy on X. For example, Matt Walsh posted, "We're told that we shouldn't object to Helen of Troy being portrayed as a black woman."
Yeah.
And yet if a major Hollywood studio made a film set in
I think I shall.
Africa and cast a white woman as the most beautiful woman in Africa, those same people would literally riot in the streets. If,
yeah, that's true.
say, Sydney Sweeney was cast in the role, they would be driven to murderous violence. We all know this is the case.
Because Sydney Sweeney is a Nazi, of course.
And he's not saying anything that is inaccurate, like that is a
Who's not actually a natural blonde, as I understand it.
fact, especially when it comes to Sydney Sweeney, who they long have called a Nazi now. And then Elon Musk responded to Matt's tweet and said, "Absolutely true, such hypocrisy in Hollywood." And like from there, Elon...
Like, I can't help but think that a lot of this is motivated by some sort of patronizing BS. Oh, aren't we great for, doing this thing for black people all over the world? I'm sure they're going to introduce some sort of African electro-funk as Helen of Troy's theme song now. Isn't that what they do with black people? Because black people like rap and that type of fusion of traditional African songs and modern music. Yeah. Maybe they'll put some... They did cast a rapper, right? They cast a rapper because obviously ancient poetry, rap and poetry, they're basically this prose, modern rap talking about... I don't even know what... I don't know if that's... I don't know if a lot of people would put like Shakespearean prose and modern rap in the same thing. Although they have rhyme and rhythm. I suppose they have that in common, but the content involved is rather different, shall we say.
Just let it rip. Post after post talking about this, saying Nolan was just trying to get an Oscar, so he was, filling his diversity quota, all of these things, talking about how idiotic this casting choice was. So there were...
I was trying to think of how to say this thing. It feels like they're doing things that are increasingly impractical and completely incongruous, completely ridiculous, and then touting it like it's something amazing. First black person to play this role that is described unequivocally as being white. First wheel to be square. Like, yes, we did it. Look at what we've accomplished. Like, it just...
So many posts like this, but my personal...
Anyways, you guys can look at the rest of this video yourself if you like. Why is everyone pissed off over the Oddossy casting by Brett Cooper?